So by filing a complaint, you're not just helping yourself, you're helping others from falling victim. So I would hope that everyone would, take legal recourse. Don't take law into your own hands. No vigilante justice, please. These are not movies where you can just go and, take law in your hands and you will think that you will get away with it. It won't happen. Instead of you being the victim, you will end up becoming a criminal.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Today it is an honor and a pleasure for me to introduce you all to this very particular session where we are going to know more about the cyber crimes. My name is Harsh and I'm going to moderate this session for all of you, wherein I'm going to introduce you all about this session and perhaps the person who is going to interact and address all of us. First of all, I request you to kindly acknowledge and welcome the presence of our esteemed guest, Madam NS Napinai, who is here with us. I would like to request all the persons those who are watching this session on YouTube to kindly upload in the comment section and welcome the presence of our guest. Madam NS Napinai is Supreme Court advocate and founder of CyberSathi. She is a senior and renowned lawyer with about 30 years of experience specializing in constitution, criminal, IPR, and cyber laws. She is a part of government communities dealing with various policy issues on cyber laws. Madam Napinai has presented before the Lok Sabha Parliamentary Committee on Women Empowerment on Cyber Safety Online in the year 2020. She has presented the National Cyber Security Center, part of the Prime Minister Office in India's proposed National Cyber Security Policy 2020-2025 on government communities as expert on cryptocurrencies and blockchain, amendments to Information Technology Act 2000, IT Act, electronics and evidence. And I believe her profile has so many things, so many glories, which I won't be able to explain in next few minutes. But I'm pretty sure during this conversation we are going to learn a lot from her. So first of all, ma'am, I welcome you to in this session. Thank you so much for joining and giving your important time.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So, moving to the topic of today's session, which we have chosen is evolution in the world of cybercrime and what it means for the data security. Ma'am, my first question to you is, or rather say it's a kind of request to you, ma'am, kindly explain our viewers what are the top emerging cyber security challenges?
Well, that's a long list actually, because the minute you say cyber, security by itself becomes a challenge. So I would say that we can probably put the cybersecurity challenges in three separate buckets. One, which is what impacts everybody, the individuals, security issues which impact the individual, economic security issues, and national security. So if you segregate it into these three, you will realize why it's so important for us to address cybersecurity not just from a technology enabled perspective, but also from a legal perspective. So, COVID in a way it had its silver linings, I would say. And one of the most important aspects of that is not just the enhanced use of digital spaces, but also better awareness amongst the users of cybersecurity risks and challenges. Unfortunately, there was also a huge spurt in cyber threats also. So naturally, with the quantum of increase in terms of its adaptability, it was bound to happen that the threats and risks will also increase. So if you look at individual threats, which is the first slot we created, uh, earlier the trend of cases used to be in terms of impacting individuals at a personal level, like extortion, defamation, cyberbullying, cyber stalking, and what is colloquially referred to as revenge porn or sextortion, and uploading of child sexual abuse content, and even violent imagery of women like rape and gang rape videos, etc. Now, when you move on to the COVID phase, however, and this we have seen the trends from earlier, but it is more so now, which is of financial frauds. So it has just been horrific, the kind of increase that you've seen. Earlier, it used to be the OTP fraud, it would be phishing attacks, etc. Now, the OTP frauds, phishing, hacking, and also use of multiple parameters, like not just in terms of fake apps, which will then gain access to your banking accounts, or just the typical OTP fraud through which they will siphon out monies in your digital wallets or your banks also. It has increased to mutual fund offenses, employment scams. So the criminals are getting ingenuous, in terms of creating these new trends of cybercrime. Users are still trying to catch up, and definitely law enforcement is still catching up. But when you look at economic offenses, it is predominantly data theft, and financial frauds again, or use of digital spaces for corporate frauds. National security has seen much more awareness and action during COVID. In fact, it started before, but during COVID. You did mention about the National Cyber Security Strategy document, which I had also contributed on. We will be getting the release in this year, sometime soon. But you will see that there would be a lot of focus in terms of national security and measures to combat threats under that.
Indeed, ma'am. I think you have given a very detailed overview, and I think it's a kind of privilege today we got to hear all these things from you. Ma'am, my next question to you is again, ma'am. It's a kind of request to you. Kindly explain our viewers how can we detect cyber attacks and respond to them.
See, as I said, the cyber criminal is evolving very quickly. So you cannot have a checklist, of do's and don'ts, which is what we have been doing for a long time, trying to send out messages to the public to be careful, right? Through a list of do's and don'ts. Today, I believe that what you really need to do is to create more awareness in terms of methodologies and not just checklists. So, for instance, some very clear directional thoughts I can share is understand and remember that you cannot share your OTP or your sensitive personal information to absolute strangers. So, most of the time, the social engineering happens, unfortunately, because of genuine service providers. So, we have banks calling us and saying, we are calling from so and so bank. They are calling us. They have our number, they have our name. They mention our name also. And then they'll go on to say, but for verification purposes, we need these following details from you. And then they'll ask for your birth date, your last 2 transactions, your billing address, and whatnot. Now, you have called me. Why do you have to do your verification with me? More importantly, by doing this procedure, you have set the bait for cyber criminals to then use the same procedure with the victims. So how will the victims be able to distinguish between the two, right? So basically, victims have to be cautious at the cost of refusing information even to a banking professional. Say that send me the details through my registered mobile number or registered email ID, etc., etc. Ask for alternatives which will protect you. But most importantly, do not share personal details unless and until it is a number you recognize or a person you recognize. Secondly, don't get scared. There are only 2 things both criminals use and they also rely on from the victims: fear and greed. If you do not share these details, if you don't do this KYC, which will also include sharing of one OTP number, etc., your bank account will be frozen, your digital wallet will be frozen, your mutual fund investment will not come to you at all. It will disappear into ether. So these are all fear factors which criminals use. Remember, law is not that weak. Nobody can deprive you of your bank account balance or your mutual fund money or anything else, right? Just like that. So you are sufficiently protected. Convenience is why we give away a lot of information. So because of fear that something will be blocked and the inconvenience of having to go to your bank to restore it, don't give away details. Similarly, for employment frauds, etc., no employer asks you to deposit money in the name of administrative charges, GST, whatever. Anything that anybody claims that you have to pay, immediately question the genuineness of it. Okay, so the second thing, don't throw good money behind bad. Everybody falls victims. You know one of the recent cases of a very famous TV anchor also falling victim to a long con online, right? Where she was told that she has got an admission into Harvard, etc., right, as a professor. So anybody can fall victim, but don't keep continuing to fall victim because of fear. So, for instance, in many of these phishing attacks, it will always start with small amounts and then increase to large amounts. So, once somebody has paid the first amount, the bait is gone, right? So, then they have fallen prey. So, the scamster will slowly start increasing the amounts, and the threats will also keep increasing. If you don't do this, this will happen, whatever. So remember that if you have made a mistake, it's okay. At some point of time, you have to draw the line and stop making further payments also. And final statement on this, don't shy away from filing complaints. Because most people are scared to then, either they are ashamed, that is the scary part of it. Don't feel ashamed. Everybody falls prey to frauds. Everyone can be a victim of a crime. It could even be because you shared some of your photographs or videos or something with somebody, right? Because you didn't know it was a fake account and you didn't know who you were dealing with. But remember, if you keep quiet, you're emboldening the criminal. They will just go and do more crimes either against you itself or someone else also. So by filing a complaint, you're not just helping yourself, you're helping others from falling victim. So I would hope that everyone would take legal recourse. Don't take law into your own hands. No vigilante justice, please. These are not movies where you can just go and take law in your hands and you will think that you will get away with it. It won't happen. Instead of you being the victim, you will end up becoming a criminal. So take the help of law and file complaints. If one step doesn't work, there are other alternatives, right? There are next steps in law. So don't hesitate to take recourse of law.
Indeed, ma'am. I think you have told many important things, and I think the viewers those who are watching this session, it will be fruitful for them. And not only I think, but I do strongly believe this. Ma'am, my next question to you is actually when I was collecting the question for this session, one question came to my table, and I think I should include this question because you are joining us today. Actually, the question is why most cyber crimes in India don't end in conviction?
See, many people will talk about how there is not enough awareness amongst police or judiciary or whatever. I can tell you that apart from the fact that I've been one of the earliest practitioners in this field of cyber laws, I've been training police and judiciary for nearly now 17 plus years. So it's not like the system is not taking steps to equip itself for these kind of emerging crimes. But there are hitches, there are delays. And that includes also lack of awareness, because how much of a capacity building we do, there are, it's a huge, India has a huge population. And cyber crimes are trickling downwards to tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities, towns, villages, etc. So if you go to the law and order situation in a small village, a farmer is being scammed saying if you buy this one product and then you add it, and I'm telling you this is an actual scam. Okay, it's called a rice pulling scam. They sell these coins or this metal sheets and say you add it when you're plowing the field, to the plow, then it will make rice grow faster. And people lose lakhs of rupees in these kind of crimes. But the police you're going to give the complaint to is dealing with small offenses. Suddenly, he has to understand what is cybercrime and how do you deal with jurisdictional issues in terms of some, tracing an IP address to its origin. How do you track the online posting? How do you get information from an intermediary, etc.? So, as the trickle down effect happens, crimes are becoming more and more, and it is also becoming more robust. But the system may not be that equipped to deal with it. It's not for want of effort, it is just the size or the volume that is needed. So we are coping with it, but that's why it is most important. And we say this even for crimes, it is more so for cyber crimes. Prevention indeed is the best cure. But merely because you were not able to prevent, merely because you were not able to, protect yourself, don't hesitate to take recourse under law. You may not succeed at the first level, but there will be subsequent levels where you will see success. And if more and more people file complaints, if more convictions come up, that is when there will also be fear in the minds of a cyber criminal. Because today, every cyber criminal thinks this is a shortcut to money, that it's easy money, it is safe money, because they think they can't be found, they can't be tracked, and that they can get away with it. So the other message I would also want to share in response to your question is, everyone can be tracked. You can be found. Please don't get misled by this, things like end-to-end encryption and therefore you're safe or something like that. You would still have to remember that you're committing a crime and you can be caught. So please ensure that this is not just about warning users to stay safe. It is also a warning to anybody who thinks cybercrime is easy money. It is not. You can be caught. Okay. So that's the stronger message also I would want to send out. And finally, where and how do you get your remedies, right? We spoke about the problems you may face at a local police station. They may not register your complaint. In many cases, I've heard victims say that we went to the police station. Most of these are phishing attacks, We went to the police station. Some of these are very scary. In one case, and that is aspirational. So a farmer thinks, okay, today my child, girl child or boy child is completed her engineering. She will get an IT job in a big MNC, multinational company. So if they're asking for money, it is okay. It's a small amount I'm spending now for a very bright future for the child. So they have sold their farmlands and paid for these employment scams. And when they go to give a complaint, definitely there are innumerable instances where police don't register the complaint. And in one instance, one farmer with tears in his eyes said, the policeman just said, see, you learned your lesson. No, now next time be careful. But that's not an answer. That's not a remedy. So here is an important resource for you and an important accountable remedy for you. cybercrime.gov.in. So this is a website which has been set up by the Ministry of Home Affairs. You can file any kind of cybercrime complaint online. So, you can sit at home and you can file your complaint. So here is your easy opportunity without you having to worry about the red tape or the delays or the complexities. You can sit at home and you can file your complaint. If it is urgent, then go physically to the police station or the cybercrime cell But otherwise, you can do this, and then you can track the status of your complaint online also. So here is your opportunity, utilize it.
Indeed, ma'am. Again, it was a quite insightful answer from your side, and I must say the World Wide Web is not the future anymore. We are in it's a present now, and as you have said that prevention is better than cure, and we have to understand this. And also, ma'am, my next question to you is, or rather say, I'm pretty sure you have answered or shared about this 500 more than 500 times about this. Ma'am, it's a kind of request you kindly explain our viewers more about Cyber Sathi.
Thank you so much for this question. We spoke about the problems that individuals have. And, in my practice, I deal predominantly with corporate cyber crimes, etc. And we are also advising in terms of national security. But there is a system which helps the corporates or a national level concern, etc., which is robust or at least substantially. They have the wherewithal to reach out to experts to take inputs, right? But when it comes to individuals, look at the situation. We spoke about the kind of crimes, financial frauds that are happening. You may lose anything from the 3,000 to 30,000 to maybe even 30 lakhs. One of the very interesting cases where a person from Kerala who was duped of 30 lakhs was able to actually bring the Nigerian scamsters to India and apprehend them. So these are all rare instances, as you rightly said, and you also pointed out why there are so few convictions. In fact, I would go on to say there are very few cybercrime complaints being filed. In UK, a study pointed out that every 10 seconds, somebody is falling victim to a cybercrime. If UK is facing that, you can assume that India is facing the same quantum of cybercrime or more. Then how come NCRB or statistics are showing in thousands, right? It's because people are not coming forward to file complaints. A lot of things actually triggered Cyber Sathi. The first of it was when I realized that even professionals are not very clear about their understanding on cyber crimes, and they seem to be under this misapprehension that there are not enough sections to deal with various kinds of cyber crimes. For almost every kind of cybercrime, you do have a provision in law under which you can file your complaints. Okay, and you do have remedies, very, very strong, powerful, and most importantly, inexpensive remedies to combat cyber threats. So when professionals themselves are handicapped, imagine the plight of individuals, right? So the second thing was that, from my early days as a practitioner in criminal law till date as a cyber lawyer, one thing I have noticed is when you are in trouble, when you have fallen victim, or you want to check, somebody has written saying, yesterday there was a session where this boy said that he received this typical lottery mail, that you won a lottery, but you have to pay this much. He didn't, thankfully for him, he didn't have that much money to pay, some 30,000 or something. And luckily, he reached out to, and this is the concept of Cyber Sathi, and therefore I'm going to refer to this lady as a Cyber Sathi. He reached out to his teacher, his Cyber Sathi there, and said, "Ma'am, I've received this mail, but I don't have the money to pay for it. What should I do?" And immediately the teacher told him, "Thank heavens you didn't pay. Don't pay. It's a scam." So this is the concept of Cyber Sathi, that whenever somebody is in trouble or they have a doubt, the first person they'll reach out to is a friend. And that friend, like this teacher, should know what are the threats, what are the legal remedies in law, and how can you avail of them. And most importantly, one aspect which no awareness program captures, and which I'm very particular about emphasizing, is what amounts to a crime. And therefore, why should you not commit that act? How many times do we see, and we can't blame only boys, okay? Girls also do this. How many times do people think something is a prank and do something? Like, you'll create a fake mail ID, You'll want to pretend that you're then becoming the girlfriend of somebody or the boyfriend of someone, and you think it's all a joke. But some of these jokes can actually result in people losing their lives. In one instance in the US, the child lost her life because she thought she was interacting with a boyfriend and it turned out to be a bully. So in these kind of circumstances, victims feel alone, they feel ashamed for having fallen prey, and they also resort to drastic consequences or circumstances. In all of these instances, the person they will reach out to is a friend, and it is so important for that friend to know what is the correct guidance to give. And that is the reason why I chose the name Sati, or friend, for the organization Cyber Sati or Cyber Sati Foundation. And the whole idea of Cyber Sati Foundation is to empower everybody. And we are therefore focusing on schools so that you start young and build upwards. More so because it is school kids who are very comfortable with technology. So it is equally important to make them comfortable with the knowledge of threats and also remedies, and also act as a deterrent from somebody committing a crime by mistake at such a young age when their future is ahead of them, and we don't want them to lose their future because of a mistake, right? So all of these were the reasons for Cyber Sati. So Cyber Sati wears many hats also. It's primarily a think tank which focuses and dives deep into various issues in terms of cyber laws, and its research papers and the articles are intended to help and guide the evolution of cyber laws, in India first and probably across the world. So that's its primary work, but it goes at a top level and also at grassroots level to ensure awareness about threats and vulnerabilities and remedies in law and how to avail of them for everyone from a school student to an adult. And it therefore provides I would call it an authentic or a reliable resource online, which is absolutely free. In fact, it's completely free, including free of ads or anything. It's a simple, clean look which focuses only on the content. It's content heavy, so people can go there and avail of it. It is at cybersati.org. And there was one more thing I wanted to do, and that's why I started off explaining about how companies and the government may still have the wherewithal to reach out. But when it comes to individuals, when the amounts are small, they are handicapped because they can't go to a lawyer, they can't go to a professional to get help. So we wanted to ensure that by just visiting and reading the contents on the site, the victims will be sufficiently guided to know how to get their remedies. But in case they are still confused, and this is right now for me, it is a self-funded initiative. So I can't afford to set up a helpline. Helplines are very difficult to maintain more than just setting up. So what I've done is I've created an online helpline. So the uniqueness of cybersati.org is that its homepage itself is just a query box, because that query box is meant to be the helpline. So one response for victims, okay, and the emphasis on victims. So when the individuals reach out directly for the victims, we do offer pro bono, free, one stage of advice, which we hope will help them to understand and guide them better to get their remedies.
Indeed, ma'am, very meaningful, and I think it's an excellent initiative. And I request all the viewers, those who are watching this session, they must at least visit the website of cybershorty.org, and I'm pretty sure they will surely find it interesting and learn something from it. Ma'am, I can say that there is a lot to learn from you, but today we are short of time. So, moving to my last question of this session, ma'am, actually the question is, the fake news and the hate speeches that cannot be spread in letters are being circulated through videos. Mediums like WhatsApp have penetrated every layer of Indian society. What are your opinion on this?
All of us have to be responsible users of technology. It all starts with us. When you look at In fact, I've written an article on this. I write a column for this online site called shethepeople.tv. I've written this article about the spread of fake news and hate speech. And I've also said there are no prizes for fastest finger first, drawing from the KBC equivalent. So anyway, there is no prize for you just because you forwarded something first. So please pause and check whether something that you're sharing is genuine or not. There is no such thing as free. Nobody gives anything for free, whether it's chocolates or lotteries or whatever. So when you get a mail saying, oh, click this link for free chocolates, you're just spreading malware. When you start sharing videos which can have vitriolic hate speech, you are as responsible for it as the person making that speech. And if an outcome results in people losing their lives, forget about what the law can do for you. Can you forgive yourself? Right? So you have to exercise some restraint. You have to exercise caution. There are so many rumors, and ultimately a lot of fake news also spreads because of fear. Some of these earliest cases of lynching, mob lynchings and people losing their lives, was because of the fear of child abduction. There were so many rumors floating around saying people were abducting or kidnapping children. And therefore, all these WhatsApp messages were circulated and people, innocent visitors, lost their lives. So we have to be really careful what we are sharing. Today, you have a lot of fake news identifiers. So if you are in doubt, check. Remember, even if it is an inspiring story, if it is fake, do not share, because that's where the attitude or the habit comes in. Make it a habit to pause and check. Make it also the habit, or rather the negative of it, not to just immediately forward just because you think it's great. Today, you have fake news, which is political, religious, communal, gender-based, racist, everything, right? It could be fake news or it could be hate speech. It could be a combination of both. You also have, and today you're aware of it, deep fakes. So understand that merely because, in today's world, what you see is definitely not what it is. So every time, just pause, think, and then decide whether you should transmit or not. Remember, there are a lot of provisions even for just publishing or transmission. It's or. So even transmission can land you in trouble. It can result in an offense. So therefore, of course, these are predominantly for obscene content, child pornography, etc. But you can still land yourself in trouble in terms of various other provisions also, because it is your act. It is not just something somebody else has done. So be careful, be cautious. That's the first step. Today, a lot of platforms are also including measures like warnings, which is meant to stop people from forwarding rampantly. WhatsApp itself, that's why introduced this provision for, showing forwarded many times and things like that, so that people will know that this is viral, right? So these are all measures that platforms are also taking. But ultimately, we have to start with ourselves. And finally, even if you don't want to file a police complaint, a lot of all the platforms for that matter has a reporting button. So please utilize that also.
Indeed, ma'am, it was really a very wonderful advice from your side, and I must say the kind of energy you brought into this session was very inspiring. And I can also say that it was a very healthy discussion with you on the topic. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining and giving an important time. We look forward to conduct more such sessions with you in future. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining.
Thank you again for having me.
Thank you, ma'am.
On the ground is where I stand. Never give up, that was always the plan. It's so cold outside.